What is up, people? My name is Tim Buell, and today we are talking about how to get a basic home studio recording setup. Now, I say basic because there's all kinds of ways that you can get a recording setup at your house. This is the way that I would do it and that I did do it. And a disclaimer before we start talking about gear and all the nitty-gritty.
Oh no.
There is nothing that is better than your experimentation and the player that you are. There's no amount of gear that's going to be able to, make your studio better than you as a musician. Your musicianship and your unique voice on whatever instrument or whatever producing you're doing, that's always more valuable than the gear you have. With that disclaimer out of the way, we're gonna talk about the 5 things you need for a basic home recording setup. So the first thing you'll need to get a basic home recording setup is a computer. Now, it doesn't really matter what kind of computer, whether it's a Mac or a PC. I'm not gonna get into that debate. There are enough people online debating that. But you just need some kind of computer. It can be a laptop, it can be a desktop. You'll have to figure that out yourself. Operating system and desktop versus laptop matters less than, there are a few things that I would look for in a computer if you really want to start recording. The first is, you want as good a processor as you can get. And, the newer the technology, kind of the more powerful in general it's going to be. So, whatever that's worth, the better processor will always make things a little bit easier for you. You'll want to look at how much RAM you have. RAM is the amount of memory that your computer has, and it's what decides how many tasks you can do at the same time and all of this stuff. So you want at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, preferably 16 or more is gonna make your life easier, but RAM is something you have to think about. And number 3, the third thing you really wanna look at when you're thinking about computer, if you're gonna buy a new one or maybe you're gonna get into maybe upgrading your computer before you start recording, you're gonna wanna look at your hard drive. You want a solid state hard drive. Traditional hard drives are little disks that spin really quick and read the information off a disk, and a solid state drive reads the information a lot quicker, they're a lot more durable, so a solid state drive is really, really, really gonna help you and make your life easier when it comes to recording. So number 1, the first thing you'll need for a home recording setup is a computer. Before we get to number 2, I wanna say that this video is actually sponsored by DistroKid. Chances are if you're watching this video, you're someone that makes music, you are either a producer or someone that creates from a home studio or wants to, and at some point that means you're gonna wanna upload your music to Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, wherever. DistroKid can help you get your music and distribute your music out to the world. DistroKid actually reached out to me at the perfect time. I'm in the process of making a solo instrumental drum album, which you can actually check out right now on Spotify. And when they reached out to sponsor a video, it was actually exactly when I was looking for a service to upload my first song off of this album up to Spotify and all the various streaming services. So I said, before I sponsor a video, let me check it out and let me upload a song myself. So you can actually go check out on Spotify, type in Metric Deception or Tim Buell, and you will see the song that I uploaded using DistroKid, and it was so easy. I have played on a bunch of different albums and a bunch of different songs from people, but I've never personally been an artist and uploaded my own music, so I was a little intimidated. I didn't really know how it worked, and DistroKid made it so easy to just, upload my file, type in all the information that needed to go there, and then you upload it at DistroKid's website and it distributes it to everywhere. DistroKid, unlike a lot of platforms, they actually let you keep 100% of your royalties. A lot of other platforms that upload and distribute music will take a part of your royalties. They have a couple different plans to choose from, but the first plan is $19.99 per year, and that's for unlimited songs and albums to upload. A lot of other services charge more than $20 just to upload one album. And for $20 a year, you're able to upload pretty much as much as you want. And since they sponsor this video, I actually have a VIP link available in the description. And if you sign up through that link, I get a kickback, which helps support what I do on this channel here. As well, you also get 7% off your first year of DistroKid. Like I said, I've loved using their service, and the only way I would ever sponsor anything on this channel and ever talk about something is if I actually believed in what I was talking about, and DistroKid was super easy to upload, and I can't recommend it enough. So again, to recap, the first thing you'll need is a computer to get a basic recording setup, and the second thing is an audio interface. Now, an audio interface is a way for your microphones to be heard by your computer. The audio interface is what all the microphones will get plugged into, and the audio interfaces have mic preamps, which is what allows, the physical signal from the microphone to get converted into a digital signal for your computer to hear. The things that you might want to think about when it comes to buying an interface. One, is it compatible with your computer? So different computers need different kinds of hookups. The computer that I actually record everything on is actually pretty old, and it has FireWire 800, but a lot of newer computers don't have FireWire at all, so you won't be able to use the interface that I use. You'll need a newer interface that has USB 3.0, USB-C, whatever, Thunderbolt. There's a lot of different hookups, so you just want to make sure that whatever interface you're looking at works with the computer that you have as far as the USB, Thunderbolt, Firebolt, whatever. Second thing you want to consider is how many inputs does it have and how many XLR inputs. So to get a basic recording setup, you will need microphones that have XLR cables that plug into mic preamps. So whatever interface you're looking at, you'll want to make sure that it has enough XLR preamps, because some of them just have 1/4-inch preamps, which means, like an instrument cable, like a guitar cable. So you want to make sure that however many microphones you want to run, your interface has that many XLR preamps. You'll just want to think about how many mics will I need to record at the same time, and is that something that I can afford now, or something that I need to save up for a little bit longer, or I just want to get into it, I'll buy a cheap 2 XLR interface and then grow into it. So we have our computer, we have our audio interface. Now we need a recording software. So there are a lot of different programs you can record in. Some of the free ones that I really strongly recommend starting in are GarageBand and Audacity. GarageBand is only for the Mac platform, and Audacity I think you can use on both, but you can definitely use it on PC. So I recommend starting in a free program. They're usually a lot less complicated, and they're a lot more like dummy proof. There are other paid for DAWs, digital audio workstations, or recording softwares. There are a lot of different things out there, but the more premium and the more you pay for them, the more features they have, which can be really, really confusing if you're just getting into it. Starting in something like GarageBand can be a very easy way to just pull it up, record, and not get so bogged down with different settings and different plugins and all of that stuff. So I would start with either GarageBand or Audacity or a free program, but if you want to go the paid route because you're getting a little more serious and you want to maybe do this for a living or do this for some kind of paid capacity, there are several different paid DAWs. I think the three that I'm most familiar with are Logic, Pro Tools, and Ableton Live. I think all three of these DAWs do different things better than some of the other ones, and I think it's all about workflow and personal preference. I actually have a great video that compares the difference between Logic and Pro Tools, because I actually recently switched from using Logic full-time to Pro Tools full-time. So I have a whole video, I'll link that somewhere and it's in the description, but that breaks down kind of the differences between Logic and Pro Tools and why I think as a drummer, it makes more sense to use Pro Tools, but that's a whole thing and again, all of the paid programs work really well. It's about your workflow and what's gonna make your life easiest. But that's a recording software, and you're gonna need one of those to record at home. So we have our computer, we have our audio interface, we have our recording program, our DAW. So the fourth thing that we'll need are microphones. Couple things to note about microphones. I'll give you a rundown of all the mics that I use for drums that I think are easy to start with and are good values. But before I get into nitty gritty of actually what I would recommend, microphones, you should always try to buy used. Microphones, typically, if they've been taken care of well, there's no difference between a new mic and an old mic. As well, they tend to hold their value well. So if you buy a good mic, and you end up not using it a couple years later, or it's not the mic that you wanted it to, typically you can resell it for probably what you bought it for because they hold their value so well. So I recommend buying mics used. And another thing to think about as you're getting into building your first home studio setup, you need to buy XLR cables and mic stands. And not all XLRs are created equal. Really, really cheap XLRs aren't gonna hold up that well. And sometimes they're a little bit noisier than really nice XLR cables. So just factor that in. And as well, depending on where your computer's set up versus where your drums are or wherever you're recording, consider how long the XLR cables need to be. 6 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, just consider that. So what microphones would I recommend? There are a lot of different ones. I recommend, again, starting small. Start with one or two. If you're a drummer, start recording with one microphone, setting up one mic and seeing what that does, and then add mics as you go. Otherwise, you're just gonna be confused and there's gonna be too many mics and you're not gonna know why. So I recommend really everyone starting with like a pair of overheads and a kick drum mic. That can get you very far when you're first starting to record. And it's gonna be less complicated. You're gonna have less to worry about. The microphones that I would recommend for kick drum, a Beta 52 made by Shure, hard to go wrong with that. Snare drum, top and bottom, an SM57. Standard, you can find them all day used. For toms, you can go an SM57. That's actually, people use those on toms and they sound pretty good. So if you find like a lot of times like churches or something will be selling a bulk of 57s. You can get a bunch of SM57s, just go for it, put some on the toms, great. The other tom mics that I might recommend are the MicTech PM10s. They're the ones that I use and they're kind of a bump up in price, but they're really, really good mics and they're better than I think usually what you're finding them for price-wise, and they work really well. So the MicTech PM10s are ones that I do recommend. For overheads, hands down, SE Electronics makes the SE8. You get a matched pair for like $500. They sound amazing. I highly, highly, highly recommend. After that, it's just about adding stuff that you might need. Getting another kind of pencil condenser type mic for the hi-hats, playing with different room mics. So I use ribbon mics for my room mics typically. The Cascade X15 is a great stereo ribbon mic that can work as overheads or room mics, so picking up something like that. And then if you're doing vocals, whether that's podcast or you're recording vocalists, the Shure SM7B is a standard vocal mic. So start small, but those are the microphones I would recommend. So you have your computer, you have your interface, you have your DAW, your recording software, you have your microphones. So the fifth thing you'll need is a willingness to experiment. And that's not a gear purchase, but again, I've said it before in this video and I've said it other places too. The most important thing is getting a good initial raw sound. So as a drummer, there's a lot of people that are like, you need this compressor and you need this thing, you need that thing. And there's a lot of gear you can buy, but at the end of the day, the player you are, the unique player you are, and your ability to know that, this mic likes to be placed here and messing with mic placement and experimenting with playing louder or playing softer and all of this stuff, your willingness to experiment is always going to be better for you in the long run. And I do think that it's a never-ending process. There's no studio musician or producer that would say they're done experimenting and they've figured out all the tricks there are. There's just no way. It's not possible. The gear you have is always going to be less important than who you are as a creator, as a musician, as a producer. So the more creative you can be, the more experimenting you can do, the more testing, does the mic sound better here or here or here? All of that is going to serve you better in the long run. And I think that whether you're just starting or you've been recording from home and you've been recording in studios for 50 years. Your willingness to experiment and love the process of learning more about recording is always going to be the most valuable thing that you can add to your recording setup. So I hope that helps some of you who are thinking about getting into the home studio thing or just kind of want to know more because you're getting into it or you've been in the game for a little while. Like the video if it really helped you out, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. As well, don't forget there is a link to the DistroKid. If you want to upload your music anywhere on streaming platforms, DistroKid is the way I do it. So thanks again to them for sponsoring this video. And lastly, put down in the comments any questions you have about home recording, any kind of gear questions or philosophy questions about home recording. Put those down in the comments. Or if you think there's something on this list of, getting your basic recording setup up and running, if you think there's something I missed, put that down in the comments. But like the video, hit subscribe, comment below, sign up for DistroKid, and yeah, that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.